Hi, my name is Griff Gordy, and here at Gordy Eye Care, we have been serving the Bi-City community for 17 years. As a former state championship quarterback, I love the fact that I can watch local high school athletics from the comfort of my own home. So it was a no-brainer to support Georgia-Alabama Sports Live and what they do for young athletes in our area.
And without business like yourself, Gordy Eye Care, none of our coverage would be possible. To be able to cover these 16 different high schools, the local colleges, and professional teams. So we'd like to say thank you to you, Dr. Griff Gordy, and Gordy Eye Care for your support of Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. And you can make an appointment today at Gordy Eye Care with the number 334-291-5125. Keep supporting Gordy Eye Care and keep watching Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. What's up, everyone? Thrift Barringer here from Brookstone campus, and I am sitting down with the new athletic director of the Cougars, Coach Jamie Williams. Coach, thank you so much for doing this with us, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We are live from the Chiefs Center, which is a beautiful complex right here on the campus, Brookstone. But you know, Coach, first thing we like to do is, this is more of an intro to everyone in this community. Me and you were talking off air. You really didn't have a lot to do with this community aside from the Sports Visions Awards luncheon that we had in football and female. But I want the entire community, not just the Brookstone family, but the entire Columbus, East Alabama, West Central Georgia community to know who Coach Williams is. So instead of me asking a bunch of questions, I'm going to let you start from where you were from, your athletic playing days, and what got you into coaching, and eventually admin.
Yeah,
so floor is yours.
That's my favorite subject myself. You know, first and foremost, and I know every athlete, every person says this, but I have been blessed beyond measure. Like I even coming here and finding a house and meeting new people, like it is unbelievable how God has blessed me. I grew up in a Christian home. Everything revolved around church and school.
Yep.
You know, your parents drag you to church until you get to decide for your life. And
right.
so literally in Union Springs, Alabama, when I was 12 years old, in a tent revival in a pasture.
Wow.
On Highway 82 going toward Eufaula, I became a Christian. And I was young then, I was 12, and there's been valleys and mountaintops, but it's the whole thing of the joy of the Lord is my strength. Happiness goes up and down, but I've always had this inner joy. And I think it was because decisions I made as I got older, but it was all based on where I was from. So Bullitt County, Alabama, Union Springs, it's halfway between on Highway 82 between Eufaula and Montgomery, and Highway 29 between Auburn and Troy.
Gotcha.
And so we were 35 minutes from all those schools. I went to a small independent school, Bullock Memorial, which closed down in 2000. It's a church school now, Conecuh Springs Christian School. But you know, I graduated with 21 people. Had 18 people on the football team. My senior year, I played football, basketball, baseball, and tennis. And everybody did that. We just thought that's the norm. That's what every school does. Right. And so I mentioned before, everything revolved around church and school. So I told someone the other day, what's funny about Union Springs, there are literally 3 times as many churches in the city limit as there are red lights.
Wow.
And so it's your typical, I tell people, it's like a Norman Rockwell painting. You leave in the morning in the summer on your bike, and there were no cell phones. If you got into trouble, your parents knew about it before you got back, because the neighbors would report you. But we knew everybody in that town, the school, I knew everybody 10 years behind me and 10 years ahead of me in school. And so very small town mentality. And I only had 2 goals in life. I've always wanted to be in a band.
Wow.
And the other complete opposite end of that spectrum, I wanted to play football at Auburn. That was the only 2 things that I really wanted to do in life. And so I got a little older, got involved with sports, had the absolute best teachers and coaches that were literally there for young people.
Right.
Most of them were stay-at-home moms that had teaching degrees, decided, you know what, I'll just volunteer my time or make less than minimum wage to work at our independent school. And so I saw them volunteer and pour into us kids and take care of us, and it's the village raised mentality. And so had the most wonderful parents, an older brother a young man could have, and I kid and tell everyone, if I mess this life up, it's 100% on me, because I had every advantage. My dad was a pharmacist. They were both from Union Springs and Bullitt County. My older brother, I tell people, I put people in this order. It's like Jesus, Moses, then my brother. Like when it comes
He was
to
on a
ethic,
pedestal,
yeah,
no doubt.
Oh yeah. And deservedly so.
Right.
Just what a role model. So I had every advantage, and I can remember in the late 80s, of course, I grew up an Auburn fan, thank God, by the grace of God.
War Eagle, baby.
War Eagle. And I can remember a guy named Stacy Danley, played at Auburn. He was a very good running back. He also shared the backfield with James Joseph, who was from this area.
Yep.
Bo Peep was his nickname. But I can remember seeing the Montgomery Advertiser newspaper and Stacy Danley holding the ball, and on his tape there was a cross. And I can remember that made such an impact, because here's someone you look up to, plays at Auburn, and I would go to fan days and A-Day games, and they would write Bible verses, and I couldn't wait to get home to look it up in my Bible. So just a huge impact that I saw that athletics could have upon me and everybody. And being in the Deep South, people, it's not a religion, but some people treat it as such.
It
you
is,
know,
yeah.
you on the playground, we always divided up. There was no team captains and pick. It was Auburn versus Alabama fans. and usually it was 50-50.
Right.
So that's how I grew up, like most typical boys in Alabama. I wanted to go play at other places. I had like a very small offer to maybe go to Troy and play baseball, because I had an academic scholarship to Troy State at the time. But I had that dream if I was going to go, and I didn't think I was ever good enough to touch the field. I'm like, well, if I'm going to go for 4 or 5 years and sit on the bench, I'm going to do it in front of 80,000 people,
Right.
and live my dream. And my dad was a pharmacist, graduated from there. My brother was in pharmacy school, and so I decided to go to Auburn and walked on. It was Coach Dye's last year.
Awesome.
And I looked at Pat Dye like Catholics look at the Pope. Like if he said it was law.
It was the truth.
It was the truth. So my first year at Auburn, it was great, having the time of my life. Two bad things happened. Number one, Alabama wins the national championship.
1992. Yep.
We were on probation for something that happened when I was a 9th and 10th grader
Right.
in school. And then at the end of the year, Coach and I resigned. So my world was just
Crumbled.
upside down. And but I had promised myself I'd do it 2 years. Well, Terry Bowden comes in, and we go 11-0. Yeah. Alabama and Florida played for the SEC championship. We'd beat both of them.
Yeah, we did.
And so, just having the time of my life, literally living my dream. Most all my friends that I was really close to also attended Auburn. So I was living the life. April of '95, I made a tackle. Central High School. Patrick Nix was actually the quarterback on that team. There were some people out sick or not at practice that day, so I got thrust in with the starting team. That would have not have lasted, mind you, but it was my 5 minutes of glory. Well, I made a tackle, and it felt like the worst stinger I've ever had in my arm, and they took me to the hospital and wound up, I broke my neck. And so that kind of ended the playing. But, I had fulfilled a dream.
But you got to do it. You got to be on the field. You got to say you play for Auburn.
Yes, and even got in a few games. I got my name called out. I clipped a few people in the Iron Bowl. And so,
That's awesome, Jamie.
I made ESPN.
That's all that matters.
That's right. So I went through that, and I thought, what's next? And I was asked by one of the coaches, like, well, hey, why don't you just stick around and be a student assistant? And it's funny, just the way God took care of me. Since I couldn't play anymore, I didn't count against the total scholarships. They put me on a full ride for the rest of my school. And my dad convinced me, get your master's, get a doctorate, whatever.
Everything you can.
It's on them. So I made money we were on the quarter system, and every quarter I made money just from my scholarship check. So I stretched my degree into about 6.5 years. Was there for Bowden. I tell people, my first or second year there, Jimbo Fisher was the quarterback's coach.
Yep.
I was there. Just so many. Every now and then, ESPN, like when Jimbo Fisher was coaching, would show a picture, and the people in that picture is unbelievable. Terry Bowden, Bill Oliver, who recently passed away, which, by the way, was the defense coordinator for that national championship team at Alabama. He was the guru of defense. So a lot of people. Will Muschamp was a graduate assistant there. And so I was able to be around great football and learned it at a very high level. And I'm sitting in class one day, I was like, I don't want to be a pharmacist. And I'm like, what could I do? And I looked at it, and I was in a geography class at Haley Center in Auburn, and I remember thinking, I could actually teach this stuff. And so I thought, well, maybe that's what I should do. And then it kind of reaffirmed it with me. My teachers and coaches meant so much to me. And ironically, Coach Dye being one of my heroes growing up, I heard a rain delay interview with him with Auburn baseball, and he said the same thing, that he had such a good relationship with his coaches in high school that when he got out of college, didn't know what he wanted to do, he decided to become a coach. And I thought, wow, I can remember actually thinking that if I can have an impact on young people the same way my coaches did with me, boy, and get paid for it.
Pretty gratifying.
Absolutely.
Right.
And ironically, I've got this picture. It's actually in my new office now. I just hadn't hung it up. Somebody called my dad one day and said, "Hey, open up the Montgomery Advertiser." It's kind of chills to think about this. And on the picture of it, it's the interception game. We returned 3 interceptions against LSU in '94.
Yep.
Well, after one of the ones, I forget which one it was, I actually made a tackle on the kickoff team. And on the front page of the Montgomery Advertiser sports section is a picture of me. And when I'm wrapping the guy up, there's my white piece of tape with a black cross on it.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, maybe there's a little boy that will see that and say, hey, if that guy from that small school played in the SEC, no doubt I can.
Right.
But it's, it's biblical. It's through my weakness, God's strength will be shown. And I'm very quick to say it. I had no business being on that field. It was just, at that time, it was rewarded if you show up on time, work hard, make good grades, yes sir, no sir, give everything you've got, be unselfish, be a good teammate. And Coach Dye told me that year one, we'll find a place for you. It may take 4 or 5 years, but
you'll get an opportunity.
You will find it. So yeah, it all came full circle. I hope maybe a little boy grew up and got to see his arm on the front page of a paper somewhere. So,
that's awesome.
And just with that influence on me, I thought, yeah, I've got to get into coaching. And so I did, and I jumped around from, golly, I've been at 9 schools, most of the time in East Alabama. If I had coached at Central, it would have been the original Region 3 back then was Auburn, Opelika, Central, and Smith.
Right.
I was 9 years at Auburn.
Wow.
I've been twice at Opelika for a total of 4 years, and I was at Smith Station for a few years. So Central's the only old Region 3 or Region 4 that I have been to. Went to the Birmingham area as the coach. My first head coaching job was at Montevallo High School.
Okay.
I'm a very small school. Met my wife there. The first week I had moved there. Met her on Cinco de Mayo waiting in line for a table. Got married, hopped around a few places, then became the head football coach at Gulf Shores. Great place to play. Football, there's a lot better it is now, but I just had the most amazing kids, but they just weren't football players. They were great kids that gave everything you had, but we called it the region of doom down there. You had some very good 6A football programs, and kids just give you everything, but you can only do what you can do. And so my philosophy was we have to maximize our potential, and we worked day and night. And we treated that every game just like it was a state championship game to give those kids a fair chance. And so it's you really, when you're in a situation like that, it's for the love of the kids and love of the game. And I tell people all the time when I'm trying to recruit coaches, like, no, we need you to do this sport. I think there's only 2 things. You got to love kids. I mean, a true, genuine care about kids, or this is really the wrong profession for you. And the other thing is have a passion for the sport. Right. Everything else can be taught, strategies, all the other stuff, budgeting, but those were the 2. And so I felt we did that. That didn't work out, so I came to East Alabama where my brother was still living. And just one day, and I'm reminded, they said John Wood, and I've read his book, he decided to retire after winning a national championship. Right. When he was walking off the court on his way to the podium. Had never discussed it with his wife, family, confidants. He walked to the podium, retired, and I'm sitting in Opelika, Alabama at a table, and we had meetings at Smith Station High School. Mike Glisson was the head coach there. We had worked together years before at Auburn, and he hired me to be the offensive coordinator. And I sat there and I looked at my wife and said, I'm dreading football. And she almost passed out. She goes, I can't believe you just said that. Right. And I said, baby, just literally, it's gone now. I don't like it. It was the first time in my life it became a paycheck paying job rather than I would have done it for free. Your passion, right. And so I don't want to use the word lucky in COVID in the same sense, but I did get kind of lucky. I'd thought about administration, getting into it, and since the whole thing of the coaching, it was time to hang up my whistle, COVID hit, and we all get sent home. So I was able to do my online degree I tell people all I did was in the morning Netflix, and the afternoon was do my assignments, and then at night post work for the classes I had at Smith Station, those kids. And so I got my admin degree, did that for a couple of years. I did want to still get around sports, and I would have to cover games, but not as in depth.
Right.
I decided to retire. I was going to have to buy a year from Florida, but out of the blue, a buddy called me and said, hey, Opelika just posted athletic director, and they're going to make it a full-time, not an assistant principal, not a coach. And
Wow.
I clicked apply and started filling out retirement papers. And my wife, number one, she is a genius. Like, she's in the Mensa Society, and her gift is discernment. And so I tell people, when your wife's a literal genius and she has the spiritual gift of seeing on deeper levels, I'm never right, ever.
Right.
So I never get to say, I told you so, honey.
Right.
But I get it plenty. I hope Coach is not watching this. She just said, don't retire, wait till summer. Well, then the Opelika thing worked out. I was able to interview and get that job. And it is a really, really big school. It's in the 7A classification. We have about 600 athletes, about 1,500 total kids.
Holy smoke.
Probably 36 different sports teams and about 72 coaches. So it was a lot to manage, but I loved every bit of it. But I got to the point, I was like, I think I've done all I've come here to do, and it's time for something else. And so I talked to my wife, and we decided I'm going to retire and start drawing my pension from the state, and I can do anything then. I tell people, it gives you options.
Right.
And so I'm literally sitting at my desk updating. I started looking at the business world and said, hey, this LinkedIn thing is kind of big to business people and job searches.
Right.
And so I was literally updating it, and I get a ping from a search firm saying, hey, there's an independent school in your area that's looking for applicants. Would you be interested? And I'm thinking it's spam or something. Right. I click, sure, why not? And so I said, yeah, I'd love to hear more about it. And I talked to my wife about it. We literally thought the next message was going to be, just give me your credit card number and your Social Security, and we'll send you the packet.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm like, there's some third world country guy sitting there like, look at this.
Let me scam Coach Williams.
And so that kind of started me down the path to Brookstone.
Unbelievable, man. And I do want to go back, because you brought up a lot of great things that I really want to unpack here, man, and kind of telling your story. At a young age, and when did you the self-realization about God giving back, wanting to be that influence, as you made mention? Was it the time you saw the guy with the cross on his stuff? Is that really that turning point in your life? You felt like you knew what your calling was going to be? Or when did that hit you? Was it at Auburn, or was it in your class that you were made mention? And who were some of those mentors, aside from Coach Dye, that had an influence in your coaching career, man?
Right. I think it was all my teachers. Like, they could literally, if you were breaking up with your girlfriend or just down in the dumps, or your dog had just died, or Alabama beat Auburn, if you just, you weren't your usual self, they would totally be able to tell that. And they would call in the halls like, what's going on with you today?
Right.
It was like, how do you know that? I thought I was hiding it pretty well. And ironically, one of my favorite teachers, Miss Paget, actually did that to me. So she called me in the hall, and it just sort of like, she actually does care for us. Ironically, her family owned the field where I got saved in the tent revival.
That's awesome,
on Highway
man.
82. So
awesome.
Her and I had all my coaches. We and this is probably my coaching philosophy as well. Like, we didn't get very intricate with anything, but by golly, we knew the fundamentals backwards and forward, because a lot of them were just kind of like here at Brookstone, they were community coaches, volunteers. So basketball, we couldn't have practice till 5:30 because he didn't get off work till 5. And so I think just seeing that was the attraction to sports. I think in the influence it could have, being a young child, Bible verses, because you want to have like what your deep sense of belief in as a Christian, you want to see it shared, and you want to know that people you look up to have that same thing. And and that was where that attraction came from. And I just think as a coach, it just dawned on me, like, wait a minute, I can actually, I had never thought about being a teacher or a coach. And and I tell people, like, were you mad? You broke your neck? How could God allow that? I was like, well, no, but it led me into coaching, and that's what kind of shifted me that way. But one of my mentors at Auburn, he had been there. Coach Dye hired him in 1981. His name's Coach Joe Whitt.
Okay.
I think he still works with the alumni group, but as a student assistant, you could only have 2 graduate assistants then. And so you had several of us, people that had been hurt or somehow their dads were boosters, or maybe they knew a certain coach. And
Right.
so I worked with Coach Whitt and Pete Jenkins with the defensive line and outside linebackers, and just coming in and seeing him talk to the young men. He would come from Sunday school early in the morning to the meetings. And he was one of those things, pants weren't going to sag, you were going to have your shoestrings tied, you were going to have a belt on, shirt tucked in, and he always talked about giving great effort. And to see him, whatever he had in Sunday school that day, he would share with the outside linebackers. And we had several good ones in that room along those 2 or 3 years. And just to see all of that and the big picture of what sports could provide for people and the influence it had. And I would go back to my little town when I was at Auburn. And it's the first time I realized I fit in with every group. So in my hometown, like a lot of them, you have your like roughnecks, you got your preppy group, you
Right.
got everything in between. And I can remember there was a little hamburger barbecue joint called The Grill. And I can remember going in there, and anytime I went in there in the summer weekends, I would get invited to eat with a different group.
Right.
Here's the people that own the horses, the farmer group. Man, what's going on? Talk to us about this upcoming game, or the people that were a little more affluent, had the more money, that were the banker presidents and all. They would invite me over to their table. So it was like, it provided a way I can fit in with any group. And I learned to adapt and speak the King's English. And I just thought that was amazing, you know. And it wasn't I was treated like a celebrity. I was just, there's little Jamie from on Powell Street over there. You know, but I saw the influence it could have, and the way that when you do, especially college football, everybody usually has a hand in that. It means something to them, and so when you were in that, it lets you. It gained me access to a lot of places I wouldn't have otherwise had.
Well, I do want to ask though, when talking about coaching philosophy and adapting, man, especially athletes nowadays, okay, they have more information to their disposal than ever before. They also have more pressure than they ever do before. How has that been for you over the years, adapting to the different athletes? Their mindset's different than when I was in school 15 years ago, let alone 20 or 30 years ago. So how has that been for you? And is that something that's always easy? And for those young and upcoming coaches, is it something that you got to have in you before you get started, or something that you can learn to have as you continue coaching over time?
I think you have to learn to adapt, and I think, like, I'm an Auburn guy, but I love Nick Saban, and I think even him, and hearing about Bear Bryant going to, all right, we're going to go to the wishbone, then the eye, and then the spread.
Right.
So I think you do, to be successful, have to adapt. But yes, kids are different, but they're still the same. Like, kids literally want to know you, and it's the whole cliche about, you know, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But that really is true. Old sayings
for a
because
reason.
For a reason they're true. And so I don't know if kids have changed all that much. I think adults have. Kids still, I mean, everybody wants another award. You know, people celebrated 1970 touchdowns just like they do now. You know, people got in trouble in the media in the 1960s the same way now. So I think the way that you treat kids nowadays has changed. You know, I grew up in a generation to where it was nothing to be cussed at, grab you by your face mask, shake you, especially at the collegiate level. I didn't have that in high school, but when I got to the SEC, that completely
Totally different,
changed.
man.
Yeah. But even now, when I go to practices, I don't see that as much. So I think kids want to be coached hard. They do want the recognition. I mean, I think, but that's anybody in any realm of life. Even if you're working in a business, you want to be employee of the quarter. You want to have recognition, and that's human nature. And at the end of the day, I think kids are still kids. They want the same thing we did, and that our grandparents did. They want to have success. But at the end of the day, I read a study, and at the end of the day, people participate in sports for 2 reasons: to have fun and to be around their friends.
Right.
And I think that's universal. Even when I was playing, I mean, sports was fun. I really didn't have a favorite sport. It was a game. And so we as adults have made it very complicated. But there's an old saying, and I actually had it in my coach's office at Montevallo: if you allow it, you encourage it. Kids will do what you let them do. And if you're up front with them and give them expectations and hold their feet to the flame and let them know there is no wiggle room, here's my non-negotiables, kids will do it. They want structure. They want to be coached hard.
Right.
The same things that break down teams back then, showing favoritism or making a rule and then don't enforcing it. All that stuff will break down, but that's, like I said, that's in any area, in the
100%.
business world, in your work, in my
Right.
work. So I think the way you treat kids nowadays, I would say probably a little different, mentally tough. Like now, I think kids do give up a little easier if things get really tough on them.
Yes.
But as adults, that's us to use as coachable moments. Don't let that kid leave your office. No, you're not going to quit. I'm not going to let you.
Right.
And here's why.
Right.
And so I think you do have to philosophize with them a little more and show them. And I think a lot of that is the internet age. They see something out there and that's what they think the real world's like, and it's not.
No.
You know,
100%.
the LeBron James of the world, yes, he was touched by God, but every workout he probably vomits that he works out so hard. So he didn't get there naturally.
Right.
He had to destroy himself to get to that level. And so I think that they do live in a world where they see all the accolades and they don't see in the documentaries the hours and hours and, what is like 100 hours for every hour on the court, there's 100 hours of work off. And I think they think sometimes it comes easier to them, but no, kids are kids.
We're sitting with new Brookstone Athletic Director Jamie Williams here at the Sheaves Center. Before we go to break, I want to ask you one more question about Opelika, because when we come back from break, we're talking all things Brookstone and why you chose this school, why is this an awesome opportunity, and your vision for the Cougars heading into the 2025-2026 school year. I do want to let you an opportunity to talk about Opelika and the job you just have, the people that you've worked with in the past, and what they meant to you in your career as you now retire from that avenue to take on this new endeavor here at Brookstone.
Right. First for like the teachers there. So I've worked at 9 different high schools, and some that were grade A schools that the kids went to Ivy League and other places to where 90 to 95% of the student body was free and reduced lunch. You know, so and I've been everything in between, but I would put our teachers that I'm finishing up now at Opelika against any teachers out there. What they do is an amazing job, and that includes the coaches. You don't get to recruit in high school. You're not supposed to. Some people still do that across the river.
Yeah.
Not going to call any names, but I could. I'm going to play nice. But you can't recruit them. So as a high school teacher and coach, you just have to deal with what walks in the classroom every day. And I think they're very efficient at what they do. I think it's a great balance. They're pushing to change things, but it reminds me a lot of Brookstone. There's a tradition that's been in place for a long time.
Right.
And there were some things that I wanted to tweak and kind of just fiddle with, to make right. But it's a small town. If you took the Auburn metro, kind of the college away, it literally is. And a lot like this place, it's almost like a Hallmark movie at times. They have
Especially
little
downtown.
festivals.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's unbelievable, man.
And which I've talked to people and they said Columbus and Opelika are kind of like mirror images of each other. The downtown area here, Midtown's also compared to. I had an aunt that lived here and we would visit her 40 years ago. Columbus, which is a much different place back then. And so there's a lot of similarities. I can still have my contacts there. It's only 40 minutes away when we move here. But it's a small town, and you can really tell it when Auburn's not in session and you take that environment out, it really is. You can't go to Walmart and back and spend less than 2 hours because you're going to run into 100 people And I've been coaching so long, my daughter's kidding me. They're like, did you teach or coach everybody in this place? So every time we go through a drive-through, Walmart restaurant, I know someone.
Somebody knows Coach Williams. And by the way, shout out to Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC from Opelika, one of our presenting sponsors. We're going to take a quick break. Jerry, this is for you. And when we come back, we got more here with Coach Jamie Williams, the Brookstone new athletic director from the Sheaves Center.
Even though I'm away at college, Kinetic Credit Union is still the best way for me to stay connected here and at home. With the Kinetic mobile app, I have control of my accounts wherever I go. I can easily transfer money between internal and external accounts, get money faster by setting up recurring transfers, and I can find the nearest ATM or branch right from my phone. Plus, I can add my Kinetic cards to my phone's digital wallet and enjoy quick, secure, contactless payments. By the way, Mom, I need some more money.
Kinetic Credit Union, the energy for your dreams.
Georgia Alabama Sports Live is proud to partner with one of our presenting sponsors, Buffalo Rock. And without this partnership, it would be hard to be able to live stream all the different sporting events at high schools, colleges, and local professional teams every single week like we do. So we thank Buffalo Rock for their support of Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And next time you're watching a Georgia Alabama Sports Live broadcast, make sure you're drinking a nice, refreshing Pepsi. Delicious. Thank you to Buffalo Rock and Pepsi.
Get ready to smile. It's Truck Month at Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika. Choose from a huge selection of brand new full-size Chevrolet Silverados. Discounted up to $13,750 off. New 2025 Chevy Equinox, the compact SUV that features high-tech options and discounts up to $5,000 off. You can enjoy no payments until July. People from all over the USA save at Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Get ready to smile.
Hi, my name is Griff Gordy, and here at Gordy Eye Care, we have been serving the Bi-City community for 17 years. As a former state championship quarterback, I love the fact that I can watch local high school athletics from the comfort of my own home. So it was a no-brainer to support Georgia Alabama Sports Live and what they do for young athletes in our area.
And without business like yourself, Gordy Eye Care, none of our coverage would be possible to be able to cover these 16 different high schools, the local colleges, and professional teams. So we'd like to say thank you to you, Dr. Griff Gordy and Gordy Eye Care, for your support of Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And you can make an appointment today at Gordy Eye Care with the number 334-291-5125. Keep supporting Gordy Eye Care and keep watching Georgia Alabama Sports Live.
Here they come. Truckloads of fresh inventory to Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika. Choose from a huge selection of full-size GMC Sierras, discounted up to $13,250 off. New GMC Terrains, the popular SUV known for its safety, technology, and performance, is discounted up to $7,500 off. Enjoy no payments until July. People from all over the USA save at Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika. Get ready to smile.
Welcome back to the Chiefs Center here at Thrift Barringer on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I'm with the new athletic director and leader of Brookstone Athletics. His name is Jamie Williams. Coach, we were just talking about your background history, but now we're to the point you took this opportunity with Brookstone. So you have a LinkedIn ping and you realize it's not a scam. You find out about this school. What about it in the process with Mr. Heil and the rest of the brass here at Brookstone? With just seeing the campus, what really sold it? What was the big thing that why you came here?
So other than my aunt living here, I didn't know much about Columbus. I had grown up 45 minutes away here, worked my whole life, or most of my life, going to college in Auburn. So I was always aware of Columbus, but wasn't aware of Brookstone, other than every now and then you'd meet someone that went there.
Right.
And so once I got past the initial, which, by the way, it is the most intense search I have ever been a part of.
Wow.
So I told him, I said, well, I know it's got to be God's choice for me to be here, because there's no way to make it through that many levels unless God really wants you to be somewhere.
Right.
But no, it was intense, but I think it just shows how much they want to get the right fit and the right person here, and I prayed every night hoping that I would be the one. But I did a deep dive into everything Brookstone, and there was a couple of things that always came up: the word family and community. And the more I read about it, the more it reminded me of how I grew up. And earlier we were talking about the influence my teachers and coaches, and,
Right.
and then looking at my situation now, there's over 1,500 kids, and it's so big. And it's like, do I feel I make a difference? Yes, but it's so big, you never know. And I thought that the word opportunity kept coming up. Like, boy, if I've been able to manage something that size, what could I do at a school like that I grew up in? And
Right.
now you do get the community aspect and that whole thing. And I'm a visualizer, and so I just wanted to be able to pull up on a Friday night, open the car doors, kids go to the games. Hey guys, after it, I'll be in the end zone, y'all find me. Well, at a school of our size, there's 4,000 or 5,000 people there. I'm
Right.
not going to let my 6-year-old just run around the stadium,
Right.
and they would be okay, but it's just me being dad.
Yeah.
And I guess it comes down to that I wanted my kids to have the same experience as I did growing up. And at big schools, and I had a chance to go other places, but it was always kind of a bigger situation. And bigger doesn't mean better. And when I mentioned the size of Brookstone, I'm not saying smaller is less.
Right.
It's more manageable. I wanted to be able to, if one of my kids is not doing something on campus right, that it's going to get back to me very quickly.
Right.
And that the reprimand them knowing that, oh, I know Coach Williams, you wait till I tell him.
Right.
You know? And so I wanted them to have that family community feel. At my current job, if I had stayed there, me and all 3 children would have been at a different campus. And my wife spends half of her day in car lines picking up, dropping
everybody,
off.
right.
And once again, I visualized here, it's like, well, now they can all 3 hop in the car and I can throw a baseball from the cafeteria and hit all 3 buildings. Well, I think I can.
Right.
I can hit a golf ball and hit all
Right.
3 buildings. And so I thought, boy, that'd be great. And then my wife can get her life back. And after school, y'all come to my office and you're going to do your homework before your mom gets here. And so I just wanted it to be that community family thing. And so the word opportunity is there for them. It's very tough. And as adults, my generation messed this up. In a 7A school in Alabama, it is extremely tough to play multiple sports and to be in multiple clubs and the arts.
Right.
And so usually you get kind of, toenailed into one, and that kind of becomes your life. And I played 4 sports in high school. I was in several different clubs, and I have one daughter that likes drama and music and
Awesome.
art, and she can do all that here. And I'm not sure, she could have where we are. I know my little boy, he's your typical 7-year-old. He plays every sport there is. And I got to thinking, and that was a large part that, you know what, I don't know if in 10 years what's going to happen to sports. Is he ever going to touch the field, much less play multiple sports? Because you got to be very mature physically and mentally to do that. And I thought, well, here he could play multiple sports. And it's the only school I've ever been that will let you play 2 sports same season.
Yeah.
And it is encouraged.
Yeah.
So all of that soaking in the tradition, the history, and you know, it's not a rebuild. It's just come in, and one of the things that I think is a gift of mine is be able to look at a situation, and this may go back to the whole less is more. When I played sports in high school, it was like, let's get really good at the fundamentals. So let's find something we're good at, and let's get really good at it. And instead of, the whole thing, do you want a wide lake, an inch deep, or a small pond that's really deep? So I just, looking at the situation here, I thought, boy, I think I could do a lot of good stuff here, not to blow it up and start over.
Right.
And I've been there in some football situations, and that is fun, but also a place that's set in the tradition, that has a lot of community support. It's just, they've got their ducks in a row, and for the chance, like, wait a minute, instead of having to blow it up, start over, you get to come into a good thing, just like at Opelika,
right,
and now put your thumbprint on it, and take it all in and say, hey, where could I make a difference? And so it's kind of like when you take over as a coach or a teacher in a classroom, like, all right, I'm going to take something, use what God gave me, and hopefully whenever my career ends and grandkids are on their way and all that, and I move to a beach somewhere with my wife, that I can leave saying, you know what, it's better than when I found it.
Right.
So it's just that, the challenge of that, but careers, like, I think everybody wants to wind up in a situation like this. You've got the support and the leadership team, which the last 2 days we were in leadership meetings, a retreat here, just I was very impressed how serious they take just the day-to-day learning.
Awesome.
And I know that'll bleed over into the athletics, and I can't wait to get here full-time July 1. But there's already so many things I see now that, like, ooh, I think I can make this not necessarily better, but streamline it, make it more efficient. So I'm extremely excited.
I am too, and I'm excited that we got to sit here and do this interview. Talking about, have you been able to meet with any of the coaches? I know we just got a new football coach, and Coach Ian Headley here at Brookstone. Obviously, Coach Greg Mathis, they call him Champ because he's got now 1 but 2 back-to-back state championships. The volleyball team made it to the state championship with Lee Halverson. The soccer team went to 2 extra times against Pacelli. The athletics here, the basketball teams under Coach Ivy, and I know they just hired a new girls coach too. Have you been able to meet with any of these, knowing that a lot of these coaches, they're really good at what they do? You just need to be able to give them resources and maybe some advice to be successful.
Right, and I tell you, another thing that really drew me here, I was kind of like a do everything at Opelika. I was the first full-time athletic director that wasn't a coach or an assistant principal, and so I did so much hands-on stuff that I really, and that was why I wanted to come here, that you could do more leadership stuff. So Mr. Howe wants us to write down our goals for the year, and one of them is take care of the coaches and their families. A lot of times I've seen my wife and kids, a lot of times there's the welcoming wagon for the new coach and all that. Well, in the background, there's a spouse, a man or woman, back packing things up, taking care of the kids, making sure the house documents get signed.
Right.
And so just that's one aspect. Like, to answer your question, I have talked to a few of them. I've been able to come here and there. In Alabama, I'm retiring, so I've got some sick days and personal days to burn. So I got to get down to a certain level. But I've been able to come here and there, and I've been emailing some, and there's some coaches openings we need to fill. But and that's a lot of what I want to do. Year one, there's not going to be drastic changes.
Right.
And I know everybody wants that. Anytime there's a new head of school, anytime there's a new coach.
They want something big.
Yes, and that, I'm actually reading a book right now, is like, that can be a trap sometimes, because before you take a destination, you need to know what road you're going to take and where you need to go before you just take off driving your car. So this first year is going to be a lot of observations. We're about to send out a survey to parents and students, kind of just to get feedback. Not to downgrade anything that's been done here before or currently been done, but just to kind of get their feedback. And it's kind of simple, like, hey, tell me about Brookstone. Tell me your Brookstone story. What is the history of it is you know it.
Right.
And how can we do things better? It's as simple as that. And I'll get that. I've already sent that out to the leadership group.
Awesome.
I'm meeting with some people that have a long-standing relationship with Brookstone, just trying to soak it all in. And so really year one's a lot about observing, but one of the things I do want to do is take care of coaching morale, because sometimes you feel on an island, you lose a big game. I would suggest any coach don't ever get on social media, because people are very brave.
Yeah.
And then they see you in Walmart and they're your best friends.
Right.
So, just sometimes you're on an island, and even though you don't look at that stuff, people will make sure, hey, did you see or read this about yourself? And they will make sure you heard it.
Right.
And just taking care of them in what ways, looking back, when I was a coach, I wish I'd had X, Y, Z. So right off the bat, I do want to meet all of them face to face. I've been able to text and email a few, but I always like face to face.
Right.
Always, you got to have that human element. And so once I get here July 1, I'll start setting up meetings, just sit down and basically saying, how can I help you? I do believe, ironically, we have a servant leadership program here at Brookstone. I think that, to me, is every Christian, that is our calling. And you mentioned the word calling a while ago. I think every educator, whether it's classroom, administrator, coach, you have to be called to this like a pastor. There's no way you would choose this.
None.
Just for the hours. And ironically, usually you don't hear teacher and coaches complain about pay.
Right.
I mean, they're very, you can't pay them what they're worth.
Right.
But usually people that complain about that are like teacher unions and politicians. But
Right.
I've never known a teacher or coach to complain about pay. Now, everybody wants to get paid more, and
Right.
But you just want to share your gift with other people and put your thumbprint and know you get to a certain point in life, you want to know you make a difference. I go to the Church of the Highlands, and thank goodness they do have one here as well. There's different quotes, and our pastor always uses the Mark Twain, I think it was Mark Twain, saying the two most important days in a person's life is the day you were born and the day you find out why you were born. I think teachers and coaches, administrators in education, we've all found that this is why God put me here.
Right.
And I have certain gifts and talents that I can provide and hopefully leave a legacy.
Right. And I love the way you talk about teachers and coaches. My granddad was a longtime coach around here. My aunt, my mom, principal, retired. I mean, education's big in my family. And before I went full time with this, was a teacher for 5 years, because I really thoroughly enjoy kids. And I like hearing the passion from your voice. And I think for everyone out there, especially in the Brookstone family, you got a great leader that firmly believes in giving back to the kids. I got two more questions before we get out of here, man. We cannot go without talking about your lovely wife, because there is no great coach without a great significant spouse. For every great coach, it has to basically live more with the kids they're coaching sometimes than they're with their spouse during the season. If you don't have someone that knows, hey, this is what you're about to get into and believe in it, it can be tough on any coach in any profession, but specifically in coaching. So I want you to talk about your wife and what she's meant to you in your career, man.
Everything. I wouldn't make it a day without her. I kid her that all the time. Like, you may leave me tomorrow, but if you do, we're buying 2 houses because I'm gonna live next to you. But I wouldn't make it one day without her. My dad always described my mom as the glue that held it all together, and I've experienced that in the last 15 years, 14 going on 15 years with my wife. Like, she really is the glue that holds it together, and the sacrifices. She certified genius, was in the business world, marketing, and she has so much to provide, and she'll find her niche. But along the way, every time she starts to kind of fulfill her own, something would come up with my job. And so, number one, she's had to sacrifice a lot. And to me, what greater call that as a Christian, know that, hey, I'm putting my family ahead of my wants. And I probably need to get a little more of that rubbed off on me. But she does that, and the unconditional love, and she's a truth teller. She's the one person in my life, and she doesn't pull punches. But I think what a lot of people don't realize when you criticize coaches, they do have spouses and kids, and they're not immune to that. I have probably stopped my wife from attacking people that have attacked me on social media.
Right.
And so, I tell her it's part of the job. It doesn't bother me, but
She don't want to hear that. She wants
not
to go.
physically attacking, but
Right.
I mean, going there. She's fiercely loyal to family and friends,
Right.
and she plays everything close to the vest. But I think that is part of her being unselfish. That's her way of protecting me.
Awesome.
And she's even holding me accountable right now. She told me the other day, it's like, one of your goals needs to be take care of you, because you have this habit of going all in, and the next thing you know, you've run yourself in the ground,
Right.
and then that affects everyone around you. So she's a truth teller, and she stays on me about that. But it's my best friend, and when people talk about getting married, I say, do it. I was like, there's nothing better than waking up next to your best friend every day that shares everything about you.
Yeah.
And challenged me, to see her doing Bible studies. Just a wonderful Christian woman that she's truly one of those, what you see is what you get. There's no fake mask. If she doesn't agree with something, she's going to tell you, and if she thinks we need to make me this way. But she's been a very good life partner for me, and a true blessing. I tell her all the time, she was a answer to a lot of prayers over my life, and so I couldn't have picked one better. I can tell you that.
And that's exactly why I want to give you the floor to do that, man. Because
Thank you.
obviously, you can't do it by yourself, and the sacrifice part that I keep hearing over and over again from coaches about what their wives have to give up, especially with the moving and stuff. That's a lot to ask of someone that wants to have their own career. So I'm so glad you're able to promote that, and I wanted you to have an opportunity to do that. Final thing, Coach. This is to the community out there in Columbus, not just the Brookstone family that's probably watching this, I know they are, but the entire Columbus, Phoenix City, local area that we cover on what is a Brookstone-led school under Coach Jamie Williams going to look like in athletics here in the near future?
I think you're going to see that something already in place, that the mission and values that you see printed everywhere. What I've learned, that is not just a logo or a slogan. I have learned that people here, from Mr. Howell on down to parents, that they are very intentional about putting that into our kids.
Yep.
So you're going to see that tradition carried on. The parameters of athletics, you got to let coaches make their own decisions. Right. But for me, the parameters are going to be, we're going to follow that mission and instill those values in our kids. We are going to compete for championships. There's a reason there's a scoreboard at every venue.
Right.
If it wasn't important, it wouldn't be there. But I do think championships and winning games is a byproduct of doing all the little things right. And so I go back to my coaching philosophy, less is more. Like, guys, as long as we hang on to these values and you love kids and have a passion for your sport, you will be successful, unless something's way outside the norm. But I think kids being developed, and that was another thing, that the word holistic kept coming up a lot. Like, I think there are things that can be learned in athletics that could never be learned in the arts or academics. And there's a flip side of that. There's things that are learned in arts and academics that would never be learned on the field. So this is the first time I've ever interviewed for a job that it wasn't hammered home. Now, we're academics first. you're a coach, but we're academics first.
Which is important.
It has never been put to me that way. It has been put to me that athletics is part of the curriculum here, and it is like anything else. It is a tool to develop young people.
Right.
And I do think that when people live here, that athletics will fit right in with the arts and the academics. And I think about it like this, like in Christianity, the Holy Trinity. I don't think athletics is any more important or any less important than anything else we do. Same thing with academics and the arts. And so I tell people like this that the academic side trains your mind, athletic trains your body, and I think that the art side, that trains your spirit, your soul. And if any one of those are missing, you're missing out. And so I think athletics is going to fit right into, hey, when you leave here, you will be a better human being because you came through here being around our teachers and coaches and athletic programs. So we're just going to follow what's always been done the right way, and we'll put our thumbprint on it. But I do want to, the whole development thing and the fact that, just a quick story here, I'll chase a squirrel. We were talking about this in our leadership retreat, and someone said, yeah, they actually had to postpone one of the, I don't know, was it a choir show or something, because the middle schoolers weren't done with football practice. And they said literally the kids came into the auditorium straight from practice all sweaty so they could sing in the choir or something with arts. And I'm like, boy, that is very unique.
Yeah.
To be able to do that and let kids do everything. And so it will continue to be that way. If you want to play 7 sports, we will try to make a way to make that happen if at all possible. And it will fit in with the other programs here on campus. And I don't want it to ever be segmented. We're e pluribus unum, we're one of the many, and we'll play our part in that.
Enlightening, very educational, and I thoroughly enjoyed this interview, man. And I don't know if you thought about putting that on a t-shirt with the Holy Trinity, talking about academics being the mind, you got the body being athletics, and then the arts being the soul. You need to make that a t-shirt, Jamie. That could be sold out immediately, man. His name is Jamie Williams. He's the new athletic director of the Brookstone Cougars, and we cannot wait for the 2025-2026 season. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
thank you
sir.
for allowing us to be here in the Sheaves Center, and we're going to see you next time on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Thank y'all so much for watching.